Hi everybody, we're back, and I've kind of laid out examples of different takedown bows that I have, because in our series I've been going over the cheapest way to get into archery. I wanted to hold off people from buying a bow, because you really want to go out there and see what type of archery is out there for you before you make a selection, because there's more traditional, there's more Olympic style archery, and so they're all kind of different. And we've been covering really target archery, but even in target archery, which is different from hunting, there's a lot of different ways that you can go. And a lot of what I do is target takedown, and so it's very common. It's a good place for people to get into. And if you're looking at takedown bows, I've laid out a lot of assortments here, and there's a lot of examples of things that you can get. And here's something I just want to show, because it's a longbow, and something I got on eBay, and I got it directly from the bowyer. And he made this, and he kind of rough sanded it down, and then I kind of finished it up. I put some green stain on there. But the reason why I wanted to show this is because the riser gives you an example of, instead of traditional longbows where you're actually shooting off your hand, the arrow is basically shot off the breast, because there's no cutout on the bow, so the archer is actually shooting the arrow right off his hand. And here he has an example of a longbow. It's actually a flat bow. It's a one-piece longbow, and there's no recurve to it, as you can tell by the tip. But he's created it and designed it with sort of a pistol grip, and also he has a shelf to shoot the arrow off of. And the reason why I wanted to show this as an example is, even though there is a shelf, you can clearly tell that if the center line of the bow is around here, that the shelf gets you closer to the center, but it isn't quite on the center line of the bow. So you're shooting a little bit off from the center. And let's keep that in mind as we start to talk about the bows. And so I want to separate takedown bows into three different categories. And the first category I want to talk about is where a lot of people start. It's a takedown wooden recurve, and for the most part, a lot of these bows, you can get into them around anywhere from the $80 to $120, maybe even $130 range, depending on which model and the type of woods and how exotic things are, and special designs and name brands and whatnot. But you can get into them quite cheap now. A lot of the Chinese manufacturers, the factories, are selling directly to local stores and doing house brands, even though they're making the same equipment for some of the biggest name bow manufacturers out there. The Chinese factories are still pushing stock into stores through different channels and off of eBay, so you can get some house brands, things that you've never heard of, things without the big name. So like Samick is a big name, PSE is a big name, Regime is a big name. And here I have examples of a Samick Polaris, not the Sage with the Polaris. Polaris is more of the starter bow, and the Sage is a little bit more the premium wood takedown. There's a PSE Buckeye, but they also have Wildcat. There's a bunch of different versions. I think that they just come from different factories, and that's why they have different model names for these. But it's kind of like one of their basic bows. And then here's a Regime Matrix, and I think that Regime actually builds the bows for PSE. There aren't that many factories out there, and this one's made in Italy, and so is Regime. Regime is a Italian company, so they make a nice takedown bow, and it's just as good as all the other ones, and they're all pretty much the same. Your choices are woods, coloring, and whatnot. The limbs are fiberglass sandwiched over maple, hard maple. And usually they come with these reinforced tips, so you can shoot fast flight strings on them instead of being limited to Dacron. It's a little bit faster of a string, and more it's quicker is what they call it. So this is also a 66-inch takedown riser, compared to these are actually youth bows. And I have an example of here of a Samick, and the neat thing about Samick, and why I would suggest if people are going to get a takedown wooden recurve, with the Samick is that you can actually buy other risers. Other companies are actually making risers that you can just put the Samick limbs on, and Cap Prostyle is something that's compatible with Samick. This is a Cartel Triple, and then there's a Rolan, I believe, is a French company that's making a polymer riser. There's a polymer riser. There's the Prostyle is an aluminum metal riser, and so the difference between these risers and the wooden risers is that wooden takedown is cut not quite to center. So even though this groove, this cutout for the shot, that it brings the arrow closer to center, it isn't quite past center, so that you can align that arrow on the center line and get really close to center. So if you look at this cutout on this riser, this polymer riser, it does take you past center. So when you align your arrow, you can actually get your arrow right on the center line. With a plunger, you can really adjust that distance that you're holding the arrow away from the body of the riser, and actually get it right on the center line. So you can adjust that by using a plunger and a magnetic rest, which is usable on this riser. So that's something that's a little bit of advantage in people that are they're building their platform off of a Polaris. They can actually change the riser to something that it, like when you say it performs better, it gives you a little bit better tuning. So I like what New Sensei, when he talks about bows, he doesn't say like, oh, get this one because this is a better bow. He actually doesn't even want to suggest which bow you're going to get, because you just get the one that you want to fall in love with. You love the style, love the colors, love the designs, you love the features, but is one bow better than the other one? Any of these decent bows, you can actually get it to shoot consistently. And once you get the bow to shoot consistently, then guess what? It's no longer the bow, it's you. And this bow right here, this shoots consistent. This stick shoots consistent. It's a little bit nicer because it has a little bit of a cutout, so it's closer to center, but once you adjust for that, it shoots consistent. There's not even a special arrow wet rest. You're shooting right off the shelf. I have a piece of Velcro on there, but I can get that thing shooting pretty consistent. But the different types of risers and the different systems, they give you different options, and that's what people like. They like a lot of options. So think of it as a platform, and that's what New Sensei calls it. It's a platform to develop all your gear and to put things on there, so you can start isolating things, like putting a sight on there. A sight would go on here. These are the sight mounts, and this even has a mount for a clicker. So this is kind of a nice riser here compared to the wooden risers. They have mounts for the sight and the plunger button, but there's nothing for a clicker. And so you may choose to learn how to shoot with the clicker later on once you get those arrows cut down to the right length for you. And then what happens is the arrow, as you're pulling back, there's a piece of metal right here, and it's resting right on the arrow, and as the arrow pulls back, it actually that little metal finger will slap on the body and click, make a little clicking sound. So it tells you when you've drawn it to the same exact distance back every time, so you can develop some consistency there. So that's the wooden recurve platform, and past that, I talked about how you can get a metal riser for this, but a lot of other bow systems, what they'll do is they'll give you a bow with a proprietary limb system, and so there's the bolts that go onto this, and so this is a special pocket that's actually compatible with only this bow. So when you buy limbs for this bow, you can't really take it to your other systems and actually continue to swap parts or get rid of this riser and get another riser, because the next risers up from this would be like an ILF bow. But bows in this category are dropping in prices, and they're actually pretty close to what we normally would have thought as their starter bows with these wooden takedown recurves. This is a Junction F-150, and I picked this up because it was super cheap. I got a bow shipped from China $80, for actually less than $80, and the prices are hovering around 80. Galaxy, which is the house brand for Lancaster Archery here in the U.S., they actually have this bow house branded under Galaxy for $120 without shipping. So it's a bow that they will call it a staff pick. So they like this bow a lot. It comes with a sight and a couple of arrow rest options, like a stick-on and a bolt-through type. I've changed it to a magnetic arrow rest with a plunger on mine, but it shoots really nice, and I can get groupings just as good as my most expensive bows on this bow. I really like this platform, and it's super cheap, and something that I will suggest to my friends now. But it is a bigger size bow. It is a 66-inch bow, so guys with a full draw of 28 inches would want to start on a platform like this, because it only comes with one size. So the thing about these wooden takedown recurves is they come in all sorts of sizes. I have actually one that's 48 inches in total length AMO. These two down here are actually all three of these are 54 inches. So these are for my kids and for very petite adults, like a 5-foot lady, 5 foot, 5'1", 5'2", maybe, or with shorter arms. This is a 66-inch riser. This builds a 66-inch bow. So these are full-size risers for a 66-inch bow, which is someone with 28-inch draw. That could be anywhere from 5'8" to 5'11". Who knows? It depends on how long your arms are. And after a system like this, like, you can get something that has a proprietary limb pocket with a metal riser, anywhere from down to $80 to $90, upwards to maybe $120 for the bow, and sometimes $150 for bow and limbs. So it really depends on which manufacturer. But there are a lot of these new options coming out of China that have a riser with limb combination for around $100. So the prices are really dropping. This is before other accessories that you may want to put on there, but it's a really good price to get into. These are ILF risers, and there's a 23-inch riser, and this is a 25-inch riser. So this will make like a 66-inch or 68-inch bow, or even a 70-something inch bow. The trend now is up to 25 inches. So a lot of the risers are coming out at 25 inches instead of 23 inches, where they were more popular a few years ago. That I would see a lot of them, and that's when I got this one about 3 years ago. And this is something I got that was brand new. I got a great price on this. This B&R, this Big Rock Maw, comes in three different companies sell this same riser. It comes as a PSA Theory. It also sells as a Galaxy Torch, and then I got this as a Asian brand. I got it off of Alibaba, straight from the manufacturer, and I actually got this for a really good price. I got this with a pair of foam core fiberglass limbs for 160 something shipped, air shipped to me. And so the prices on these bows are just dropping amazingly, and you can spend hundreds of dollars for just the riser as an ILF bow. And when I say it's an ILF riser, if you look at the limb pocket, they actually will match, and they have a tiller boat here that lets you adjust the angle that the limb sits in the pocket. This height of this bolt will change the angle of the limb, and will adjust the angle, so the poundage of the limb can change just a little bit. And so, these limbs just actually click right in there. So once it's strung, it's at the set angle, depending on the height of the limb pocket. So a limb from this ILF system will actually fit into that bow, and it will also click right into this bow as well. So they kind of float in there until the string puts tension on it, and then it'll be they'll be rigid. So you can have different limbs at different weights and just have different risers. Have one riser or have multiple risers, and you can set up the bow accordingly to what type of limb and what poundage that you're looking for. So these risers are also dropping. Some of these risers are down to $80. But usually a starter ILF riser will cost you 100 and something. Galaxy sells this for 150. PSC sells this with limbs for 300, and I got this overseas for basically 160. And I've seen it on eBay for 160 something with limbs. So I got a little bit better price because I had a little bit upgraded on the limbs. The other limbs were basically fiber wood core, and this is fiber glass over foam core. So this is a little bit of an upgrade. It'll be a little bit quicker is what that type of materials. Its attribute is the limb has a little bit more speed to it compared to the wood core. And so you can spend as much as you want when you start off. You can spend, if you want to get all the Olympic style stuff, you can spend up to $2,000 for a full setup. But should you? It's really your money, and who can tell you what you should spend it on? And there's a lot of starter stuff that people will spend a couple $1,000 on. But a lot of times people used to point beginner takedown target archers to these takedown wooden riser bows, and they would spend 100 and something, just a little over 100 for the bow. The prices are dropping on those down to $80 on depending on which brand and where you buy it from. But also got one of these for $80 off of eBay, and it shoots great. And if you look at the cutout, it's past middle, and I set this bow up myself, and I tuned it. And when you buy it off of eBay, you're going to have to get it tuned. You're going to have to figure out how to set the bow up, and put a knocking point on the string and adjust the brace height on the string. And if you're going to shoot with the plunger, you have to adjust these things and figure them out. And there's a lot of tutorials, a lot of guys out there show you how to do this stuff on eBay and whatnot, and that's where I did a lot of research and I learned. But you got to fiddle with it or take it to a pro shop. If you go to a pro shop, you're going to have less options, but you're going to pay more of a premium. It's really what they have out there, and you're paying whatever price they set it at. So I believe that equipment has gotten better and cheaper over the last couple of years. All these bows are going to shoot fine. All these bows that I've shown here shoot consistent, and then after it shoots consistent, the only factor of error is really you. Some of them can be dialed in better and have a lot more options. This bow has one stabilizer bar mount, but so does this bow. It has this mount for a stabilizer. This bow riser has three. 1, 2, 2, 3. This is for the clicker, but and they all can mount have mounts for sights. Some have 2 plunger buttonholes. They'll be a little bit different by weight. Now the trend for bows is to be heavier. This is a carbon fiber riser. It's very expensive, but it weighs just over a pound. This weighs 2.5 pounds, but the trend now is to have a heavier riser, because with more weight it's more stable. It will not torque in your hand as easily. So different materials have a different specifications, have different characteristics compared to other ones. And even though this uses takedown wooden recurve limbs, I put a polymer riser on there that it's I can adjust the arrow, and the arrows are shooting close to the center of the bow. So a lot of options out for you. After you've done archery for a little bit, I think that it's good to look at some of these options, and I've suggested things that I think that are I've shown things that I think that are great to start off at. I like Regine. I picked this bow really for the color of the riser, but does it shoot better than any other wooden recurves? No. they all shoot fine. They all are good solutions, and as long as the bow is built properly and gives you the options to set up, it's going to shoot fine. So a little information out there to help you with your choices. Thanks.